Mrs. Sivasangri. She has finished her master degree from Dessau School of Architecture, Germany. She's also worked as an architect in Gebauwerk, Berlin. She's worked with various projects ranging from research centers to libraries, international embassy to resort design, and has also attended Studio Zaha Hadid Summer School in Romania.
Welcome to UGC lecture series. In today's episode, we are going to have a look at History of Architecture, Semester 1, BArch. Today, we are going to talk about ancient river valley civilization of Egypt. Earlier in the first lecture, we had a look at the various factors which influence the Egyptian architecture and the evolution of pyramid from mastabas to step pyramid to pyramid. In today's chapter, we are going to have a detailed look into the step pyramid, and then the Middle and New Kingdom burial chambers and mortuary temples. Earlier we talked about how the pyramid evolved from mastabas. Next was a step pyramid. The step pyramid was basically conceived by King Zoser. He initially conceived a huge mastaba in monumental scale, but later it turned out to be a step pyramid. It was built as a funeral complex in the necropolis at Saqqara. King Zoser employed Imhotep to build the step pyramid. The step pyramid has 5 huge mastabas placed one over the another. Dissatisfaction in making a one big mastaba, he placed one mastaba over another mastaba. The step pyramid has 6 huge steps, making it a monumental one. The step pyramid has a 200 feet high, and it has 6 slopes. This is a Zoser complex which is placed in Saqqara. The step pyramid is placed in the center of the huge complex. The complex consists of mortuary temple, the step pyramid, and step pyramid consists of mortuary temple, the step pyramid. The entrance consists of colonnade structure placed one over the other, and a southern court, and a house of south and the house of north. There is also a Sarda which is placed next to the mortuary temple. In the north palace is found the columns with capital. The columns were derived from papyrus plant. They have this papyrus structure in the top, the flower like structure, and the stem like a papyrus plant. The next items, there are various items for a pyramid building. King Huni was the first person to conceive a pyramid. The pyramid initially he built a 7-step mastaba and with the angle of 51 degrees. The height of the pyramid is 91 meters. It has a subterranean chambers below and 7 pyramids which has been capped by sandstone structure. Senfru attempted various pyramid structures. His first pyramid is a place where he was buried. It was bent in the middle and it was called a bent pyramid. It was at the height of 100 feet and the angle of 52 degrees. Senfru had a second pyramid in the north. It had a lower pitch of 43 degrees instead of 52 degrees, which is a normal pyramid angle. Earlier kingdom tombs, Pyramid of Giza. Pyramid of Giza is one of the most monumental structures of Egypt. It was very famous due to its monumental structure and height. The first pyramid of Giza was built by King Cheops. He was a son of Khunfu. The pyramid of Cheops is located in Giza. It is known for its monumental structure, that is why it is called as a Great Pyramid. It has a height of 482 feet and a plan of 760 feet square. There were 2 additional pyramids which built after the pyramid of Cheops. One was a son of Cheops, Chepron's pyramid of Chepron, and another one is Mephiles, son of Chepron. All the 3 pyramids is a part of a big complex called Pyramids of Giza. There is a pyramid of Khafra, pyramid of Khufra. You could see a lot of smaller mastabas and smaller pyramids over it. The smaller pyramids are dedicated for the queens of the kings, and the smaller mastabas for the family members of the royal family. Every pyramid has a mortuary temple in the front. The mortuary temple is connected to the valley temple through a long causeway. Also, the valley temple had the great sphinx in front of it. The mortuary temple and valley temple had a connection through a causeway through which the king's mummy is brought into the pyramid. And you could see various other structures in the complex. The complex also consists of palaces, temples, and other mastabas for the queens. The Great Pyramid of Cheops. The entranceway had a descending passage which contained the subterranean chamber. It has basically three main chambers: the subterranean chamber, the queen chamber, and the king chamber. As you can see in the image, the entrance lead to the descended passage which contain the subterranean chamber. The subterranean chamber is where the Sacropolis is kept, and halfway through the descending passage is the ascending passage which leads to the grand gallery which leads to the king's chamber. The king's chamber is basically a colorful room which consists of air shaft for ventilation. It also consists of the king's body, and this is where the king is buried, and also all the gold which is needed by the king. In between the king's chamber and the descending passage is the queen's chamber. The queen's chamber consists of a statue niche and also the burial of a queen. As you could see, the king's chamber is 35 feet cross 17 feet. The queen and king's chamber is connected through the entrance on the northern side. There are two air shafts which is connected to the exterior for the ventilation. As you could see, the king's chamber consists of a gabled roof and stone lintels, and it's connected through the ascending corridor through the grand gallery, and this is where the king is placed. Pyramid of Chephren is a very best preserved example. It had a very nice connection to the valley temple and the mortuary temple, which later served as a base for the mortuary temple. The mortuary temple and the valley temple is connected through a causeway, and it is located next to the Nile, where the king's body is taken in through the boats. There is no accurate knowledge about the construction of pyramid. It is said that about 1 lakh people were involved in the construction of pyramid for the period of over 30 years. Limestone is a basic material for the construction of pyramid. Each pyramid took about 30 to 40 years to build. The Sphinx at Giza. The Sphinx at Giza as a body of King Chephren. The Sphinx is placed next to the valley temple. It served as a god for the old complex. It has the body of King Chephren. The Egyptians built pyramid basically because the pyramid was a response to a vast landscape of the desert. It was monumental. At the same time, it acted as a product of the belief in immortality of the Egyptians. Egyptians believed in immortality as life after death. They conceived pyramids as a permanent adobe and houses as the temporary adobe. They believed the car will come into the person's body after his death and will remain in the pyramid forever. Mid and New Kingdom burial charm. The mortuary temples. After the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom, the construction of pyramids started to decline due to the factors like heavy construction cost and a huge number of time which is taken for the construction. Evolved as the new burial complexes like mortuary temple and underground tombs. Egyptians still believed in the life after death, so they converted the pyramids into mortuary temples and underground tombs. There is also another reason for the construction of mortuary temples and underground tombs. Due to the lot of burglary which happened in the pyramids, most of the gold was stolen by the robbers, so they decided to build the mortuary temples below the ground, so it could not be stolen. The mortuary temple of Mentuhotep. There are two mortuary temples were built at Del al Bahari. Del al Bahari is a site where all the mortuary temples were built. The mortuary temples of Mentuhotep and Hatshepsut. Mentuhotep is the first king of the Middle Kingdom. He built the first mortuary temple of Del al Bahari. As you could see, it is not as massive as the pyramid. The structure itself, large platforms placed one above the another. Above is connected to the ground by the ramp. The small pyramid is placed at the center of the tomb. The small pyramid acted as a place where the person will be buried. It has two colonnade structures at the below and the above. The below has single colonnade structure, and the next step had a double colonnade structure all over. It is simply connected through ramps from one step to another. As you could see, the double colonnade structure. This pyramid at the center acted as a dummy burial chamber. So, the complex, the entire burial complex, the mortuary temple, as you could see the number of colonnade structure, the burial tomb is actually placed in the western side of the temple. It is connected to the subterranean chamber to the below, to the underground. The columns are made of are inspired from the papyrus reefs, and most of the columns in the second terrace were double colonnades. And each of these temples is connected through a causeway to the valley temple near the Nile. The basic inspiration for these temples came from the Zosis complex and pyramids of Giza, which are connected. The valley temple and the mortuary temple are connected through a causeway. The temple of Hatshepsut. The temple of Hatshepsut is as a grand stage on 3 levels. Each of these 3 levels was connected through a ramp in each level. The top level is a chapel dedicated to the goddess of Hathor. The chapel was dug out of rock cliff. Instead of having a monumental structure, Hatshepsut thought of going into a linear structure instead of a massive structure, and it also flanked by the cliff behind, which increased the monumentality of the temple. As you could see, a big cliff which is in the background of the temple. It doesn't have a dominant mass. Instead, there was a strong horizontal axis which you could see. And as you could see, this temple of Hatshepsut doesn't have a massive structure. It started as a linear component. Mid and New Kingdom burial chambers, underground tomb and rocket tombs. There are 2 types of underground tombs. One is rocket tombs and other is a shaft tombs. Rocket tombs are basically derived from carving out the rocks. It usually are found in the cliff of river Nile. Belhassan has a lot of these tombs. As you could see, the rocket tomb has a flanking facade which has colonnade structure in the front, and inside was a small chamber which consists of columns. These columns had multiple facades, 16 facades. Each column has 16 facades. Inside was a small adobe in which the dead person is kept. The columns are designed as a bundle of reed tied together by a thread. These rocket tombs as a reed inspired from the reed structure. And then were the shaft tombs. The shaft tombs is a complex series of corridors which leads to the burial chamber. This is due to the shaft tombs arrived as a result of robbery in the tombs, like the pyramid. Most of the pyramids and rocket temples were robbed, so they started building burial chambers below the ground. It has several rooms which is built like a maze. So we don't know where the actual burial chamber is situated. It is designed as a puzzle which leads to the burial chamber. These shaft tombs have smaller rooms with smaller colonnade structures. It also had a small temple in the front and a small burial chamber, and is set up for offering for the dead person. As I said before, it is designed to make it difficult for the robbers to find the where the actual burial chamber is placed. Once the person is buried, the burial chamber is closed forever. New Kingdom cult temples. The Middle Kingdom lasted for about 275 years. After the Middle Kingdom was the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom started after the Second Intermediate Period. It lasted for about 500 years. During the New Kingdom, the capital of Egypt moved from Memphis to Thebes, which lies in the below. New Kingdom cult temples. Most of the New Kingdom cult temples were derived from the pyramid complexes, monumental temples, rocket temples, etc. There are several temples which were built for various Egyptian gods. The main Egyptian gods including sun, moon and the sky. They also borrowed elements from various other temples. Borrowed elements include long approaches and Gordian sphinx, which is borrowed from the pyramid complexes, and the colonnade stuck vestibules and inner courts and darkened shrines from the mortuary temples, and the intricate linear progression of construction space from the rocket temples. These temples had various influence of previous architecture of Egypt, which include the sphinx, the pylons, projecting pylons in the front, and the hypostyle halls. As you could see, there are many examples of New Kingdom found at Karnak and Luxor, all in Thebes. Most of these temples were located in Thebes, which includes the Temple of Amon-Ra, Temple of Khons, Temple of Mut. First, we are going to have a look at Temple of Khons, Karnak. The Temple of Khons at Karnak is a perfect example of a New Kingdom cult temple. It is flanked by the pylons in the front, peristyle court next, and then the hypostyle hall, followed by the sanctuary at the end. The pylons, they had huge pylon at the facades, and the peristyle halls which contain colonnade structure, double row of colonnade structure, and then is hypostyle hall which had different level of colonnades, and next is a sacred boat of cones is the sanctuary where the deity and the boat is placed. As you could see, the colonnade structures in the hypostyle hall, these colonnades is inspired from the papyrus leaf, and they use different colors to decorate these colonnades. This is the temple of Amon-Ra, where you could see the massiveness of these temples. As you could see, the pylons in the huge pylons in the front, the peristyle hypostyle hall here, and the peristyle hall. The Temple of Khons is dedicated to god Amon-Ra. The person approaching the temple, as I said before, sees the pylon at the front. The pylons are higher and wider with the temple behind it. It is treated with various moldings and decorated with relief carvings. The mast and religious flags fly in front of the pylon, which depict which kingdom it belongs to. Behind the pylon is the peristyle. It's a very big courtyard with the rows of twin colonnade structures, and it was open to sun. It is basically a open hall. Beyond the peristyle is the hypostyle hall. People are allowed. The normal people are allowed only till the peristyle court. The only kings and priests are allowed inside the hypostyle court. The hypostyle court is basically as columns with different level. The center columns is raised, two center rows of columns are raised more than the other columns. Hypostyle also means a room with many columns. The peristyle hall has columns with different colors and reefs. The ceiling was usually painted in blue, which depict the sky. Egyptians considered these temples as representation of universe itself, which usually the different Egyptian believed these temples as the universe itself. So, they believed painted the roof in blue which depicting the sky, and these complexes usually have a water body nearby, and it also had a inner sanctuary at the end. The columns in the center of hypostyle hall were usually higher than the other sides. In between two roofs, windows were placed to allow light to enter. As you can see, there is in between the two roofs, windows are placed in the hypostyle hall. These windows are called celestial windows, which allows light inside the building. The gate of the hypostyle hall leads to a sanctuary. Only high priests and kings are allowed inside the sanctuary. The sanctuary basically contains a boat and a deity. Far end of the room is a sanctuary, is where the chapel is placed. This is where the god and goddess are placed. As you could see, the height of the temple decreases as we go by, and the floor rises, which reflects the different play of light inside the building, light and darkness inside the building. Learning outcomes. In this chapter, we studied about the evolution of pyramid from step pyramid to the pyramid, construction details of pyramid of Giza, and pyramid of Cheops and pyramid of Chephren, early kingdom tombs, and middle and new kingdom burial chambers. In next chapter, we will be seeing about the other temples and the various principles which is involved in the construction of Egyptian monuments. Questions? Explain in detail about the pyramids of Giza. Explain about the mortuary temples. With this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you.